Welcome to another session of beading with me with my tulip needles. Today I want to share with you the gold bead bracelet that I designed for demonstration of Tulip brand beading needles back in May of 2011 when I first became the distributor. I designed this bangle bracelet, which is kind of ubiquitous. I'm sure a lot of people also make it. Thought it was their own cleverness. But it uses right angle weave, and I sold it as a very inexpensive kit for $5 or $10, but it came with a package of free needles at the time, so it was a way of introducing them to our bead community. These are some examples of the bracelet. This is the original one. That's the one I'm going to show you today. And then some variations are when you close the bracelet, instead of using the third row of zipping up the sides to use the same bead, you're going to use a magatama 4mm. And here's another example. These are with the durable finish or permanent finish size 8. They happen to be Charlottes though, they're a little bit extra sparkly, and of size 4 magatama. This is the bracelet that's the same as the gold one, but we added 3 more rows of peyote stitch with drops in between. So you have 3 lengthwise opportunities to embellish the bracelet with peyote stitch. So here it's with the magatama 3mm, the sort of purpley one, and then the pearly looking one is a 4mm drop. This one is the same style, but we use the khaki size 8 and then a yellow lined drop. But this one closes instead with a magnetic closure and a safety chain, just in case you don't want to roll them on. I've determined that most of the people that have purchased these from me or that I've gifted, if I do it with 44 units of length, that is to start with 43 units, and when you close it up into a bangle it's 44 units, that's able to slide onto most people's hands, even if it requires a little bit of soapy water to do it. And this is another variation that's 3 rows, but the third row isn't the row that zips it closed. Instead, what zips it closed is a rondelle with a size 15 seed bead on either side for 1 stitch, and on the next stitch there are cross lines of 5 size 15 seed beads. And then this one was executed in size 6 bead with a larger rondelle in the same sort of style. Now, if you shoot me an email at any time and ask for this recipe, I'm happy to email it to you as an email attachment, okay? And you're going to also see me use the Tulip cellulose head pins in this demonstration, so at any time feel free to send me a self-addressed stamped envelope and I'll be happy to send you a tulip pin. And if you want one of each, that's dandy too. The pink one is a little bit finer and is meant for like silk fabrics for quilters, and the yellow one is a little bit thicker and more substantial for some of the ways that we use them as beaders. So to start with, I have a short length of thread here that I've prepared, but you will start with a wingspan of thread. That's your wingspan, or maybe about 6 feet. Maybe you're not 6 feet tall, but start with 6 feet of thread is good. And I've put it on 2 tulip beading needles. These are either size 10 or 11. They both work fine for this project. And then I'm going to open my beads. So I had been a real advocate of doing right angle weave and cubic right angle weave, like in these projects, using a single needle. And especially when using crystals, the single needle was a desired method because, whoops, the magnet came open, was the desired method because it allowed so many thread passes through the beads that the thread was less likely to break. However, when I started to make this bangle bracelet, I noticed that if the beads were done with a single needle, it came out a bit wonky. I love that word. My beloved niece Amy introduced me to that. So wonky says it well. This center bead, the cross bead, ended up being always at a little angle when it was done with the single needle. But if you use 2 needles, a double needle technique to do this right angle weave, the way we'll do today, every single thread path is symmetrical and even through the beads. So it produces a really precise and uniform precision type beadwork. Okay, so we're going to start by picking up 1 size 8 bead and centering it on the thread. So this is just a short thread for demonstration, but you'll be using a longer thread, right? About 6 feet, 5 or 6 feet. So I'm going to pass my tulip needle into a little bit of the fabric of my bead on it board, and then through that first bead, and then through the mat again. So this isn't necessary, but when I bead something, I think, okay, what is the most efficient and fun way to work on this piece? Because sometimes time is a factor, especially if you're going to sell your work. So if we pin the beadwork down, it gives us something to pull against as we work to keep the tension beautiful and propels us through the beadwork. Okay, so we have this one bead centered on our thread. So now we'll pick up one size 8 on each needle and cross them in another size 8 bead. And then just pull the needles opposite each other, which causes the beadwork to go right down to the beadwork on the pin. So again, it's one bead on each needle, and then pick up another bead to cross with the other needle. So sometimes, in the spirit of being faster and more efficient, I pick up 2 on one needle and 1 on the other needle and just pass into the nearest of the 2. So we're just going to bang out a strip of 43 units. Now I say 43 because that 44 units, when it's made into a bangle, seems to be a uniformly pretty much one size fits all thing, but of course we know that one size doesn't really fit all. So in the recipe, I encourage you to measure your wrist. So you're going to take a tape measure and wrap it around the widest part of your hand, over your thumb and just below your knuckles. And that way you can determine what size it'll be. The rule of the general acceptable rule is that the measurement around your hand when it's at its widest like that through here is that it's 1 inch wider than your wrist. So that holds true for a lot of people, but but not always. Okay, so once you've worked up a strip of this that's 43 units long, we're going to close it by picking up, so pretend this is 43 units. We're going to pick up 1 bead on each needle, and instead of crossing them in a new bead, we're going to cross them in the first bead that we had pinned to the mat, right? So we're going to just cross in that bead, and then when you pull both threads, you're going to have a bangle. Well, let's see, you're going to have a strip of beadwork, let's grab the step out, that looks just like this. And your needles are going to be coming out of opposite sides of a cross bead. Whoops, let me just straighten out my thread here. Sorry, folks. Okay, so the needles are coming out of this cross bead right here in opposite directions. So in order to continue, we're going to add a second row on our beadwork. So if you're a right-handed person, you'll pick up your right needle and pass down just 1 bead. I am a right-handed person. And then I'm going to put that needle down. If you're a left-handed person, take the left needle and pass down through the first left bead on the edge. Okay, so now for a right-handed person, pick up the left needle and pass down through the edge bead, and then across through the cross bead, and then one more maneuver, one more right angle. You're going to come up out of the right edge bead, the same bead that the other thread is exiting. So both threads are exiting in opposite directions this right edge bead. For the left-handed person, you're going to take your right needle and pass down the right bead, across the cross bead, and then up out of the left bead, so both threads are exiting the left edge bead. Okay, your recipe will tell you that only for the first stitch, only for the first one, we'll pick up 2 beads with our top needle and push them close to the work. Drop that needle, and with your bottom needle, pick up 1 bead and push it close. Take your top needle and cross through the bottom needle's bead and the next bead of the edge and pull it through. And when you do, you'll see that the top needle is now coming out to the right or to the left, and your bottom needle is coming straight towards you. So before you put the needle down, while it's still in your hot little hand, I would remind you to pick up a bead and push it close. Drop that needle, pick up the other needle, and a bead, cross through the bottom needle's bead, and then cross into the next bead of the edge. Pull it through, and while it's in your hot little hand, pick up a bead and push it close. Drop that needle, pick up the other needle and one bead, cross through the bottom needle's bead. You're crossing through it, okay? And then the next bead of the edge. So again, while it's in your hot little hand, go ahead and pick up a bead and push it close. Drop that needle, pick up the other needle and a bead, cross through the bottom needle's bead and through the next bead of the edge. So you can get into a real rhythm this way just by singing that little song in your head about, while it's still in your hot little hand, pick up a bead, push it close, drop that needle, pick up the other needle and a bead, and cross through the bottom needle's bead. Now let's observe how beautiful and unwonky the beadwork is. The cross beads are definitely shooting straight across, and all the vertical beads, the edge beads and the center bead here are all vertical. So they're at right angles to each other, hence the name. Perfect. So you're going to continue like that all the way around, but you'll notice on the last stitch when you come around to here, let's pretend we've gone all the way around, you're going to notice that 2 of the beads are already in place for the right angle unit. So here's the bottom one, or the south one, here's the west one. You're going to be adding only a north and an east. And if you forget and you pick up 2 beads as you've been doing for 43 times, you're going to notice that there's 1 too many beads when you get here, and you'll catch yourself and then say, oh, this is where Carol said all you need to add is 2 beads, and is 1 bead in this place and not 2. Okay, so again, you're going to ask me for that written recipe. So once you've come all the way around, it's going to look like this. So this one's a little bit faded, so you'll forgive that. It's a durable finish that I exposed to Clorox bleach when I was sanitizing something in the kitchen. So be really careful about getting chlorine bleach on your durable finish or permanent finish beads, because it will take the finish off. So when you're ready to get to this stage of your piece, to make this bracelet, we used a size 8 to zip up the 2 edges. And in this bracelet, let's see, and in this bracelet we used a magatama to close up the sides. Right now I'm going to show you to use crystals. So 4mm bicone crystals will work beautifully. So I've prepared 2 needles on a long thread again, as we've been doing. The 2 Tulip, this one's an 11, this one's a 10, I think. Doesn't matter. They both fit through beautifully. So I'm going to start by picking up 1 crystal and centering it on the thread. And you'll notice that I've taken the 2 rows of beadwork and I've rolled up a bead mat. This was a gift from Sparkle Spot when I taught there. I've rolled up a bead mat and I've put it inside the beadwork. Sometimes that just makes it a little bit easier for you. So I'm going to now pass the needles away from myself in opposing edge beads. And when I do, the crystal is going to center itself right there between the beads. So now I'll pick up I'll pass through 1 gold bead on each edge. Wait, I already did that, sorry. So we're going to cross the beads in a new crystal. Sometimes you can't cross it through like this because the hole isn't large enough. So just slide the crystal onto the thread of 1 needle and cross through it with the other needle. And please, for goodness sakes, remember that we're cross needle weaving through this whole project. Sometimes people will be confused and they'll put the needles through in the same direction, which throws everything off. Okay, so then we snuggle that one down close to the work. So we crossed in a crystal, and then we're going to shoot up through the edge beads. The right needle goes in the right edge bead, the left needle goes in the left edge bead. I pull both threads through, and then I'm going to cross the needles in a new crystal. So I pick up a crystal on 1 needle, just slide it onto the thread, and then cross through it with the other needle. So they're in opposite directions. And then pull that down close. Perfect. So you're going to go around and add 44 crystals in this way, unless your measurement merited that it should be a larger size. So I think that's enough information for the visual, but let's just talk about these variations. This one, you came out through the cross beads, through the edge beads, and you put a bead in between each like peyote stitch. So if I were to show you with this, let's see, I don't have any drops out, but I'll pick up this 8. Let's be coming out of an 8. So I pick up an 8 and I pass into the next 8 in that direction. So it'll sit there in that space. So it's like peyote stitch. So I pick up a bead and I go into the very next one in that line. So you can decorate in between each of the edge beads with magatamas or drops or 8s or whatever fits in there to your pleasure. And this example was we crossed in a rondelle that had a size 15 on each edge. Let's use this one, it's a little bit brighter. A 15 on each edge. Then we passed the needles through the 2 edge beads. Then we picked up 2 15s on each needle and cross them in a new 15. Then pick up 2 more 15s and go into the 2 opposite edge beads. Then cross your needles in a 15 rondelle 15 and then shoot up through the next pair of opposing 8s on the edge. So that's how you would decorate this surface. It only works if you have an even number though. So if your wrist measurement meant that you needed to have, say, 47 units, it's not going to work out beautifully. You're going to end up with without a symmetrical number of units. I think one of these did that because it was the first one I made and I hadn't taken that into consideration. Ah, yes. Yes, right here. I had to do the crosses twice because there wasn't a room for the rondelle. So mistakes are great because we learn from them and it makes it all less scary. Anyway, thank you for beading with me today. It was a delight to share this with you. Please feel free to send me a self-addressed stamped envelope to acquire your Tulip cellulose head pins, or shoot me an email and I will send out as an attachment this recipe with nice large illustrations for making the gold bead bracelet designed by Cypher for demonstration of Tulip Company brand beading needles. Thank you so much. Bye.